adopt. Okay,
All right.
we are live.
Today is Monday, August 19th, and this is a School District of Menominee Falls Board of Education Student Services Committee meeting. There's a possibility that a quorum of the full membership of the Board of Education may be in attendance at the board committee meetings. There'll be no full board action taken at any board committee meeting. Only members of the committee may vote on any item on the agenda. A live broadcast will be streamed on the school district's YouTube page. To watch the recorded meeting, please visit our SDMF YouTube site. It is 6 p.m. and we are located in the Village Hall Upper Level Conference Room 3344-45 on W156 and 8480 Pilgrim Road. Was the meeting properly posted?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the minutes approval. We will be moving the minutes approval to the next meeting. So we'll make a note to take a look at those and approve for tonight and the next meeting. Thank you. Okay. So I guess we're diving right in to the discussion items, and the first item on the agenda is the oak boxes.
In your packets, I have the oak boxes information for what we know, it's labeled as oak, it's the acronym for overdose aid kit. These are not something that's new in our area, but it is something we're looking to pilot at the high school. And really what it does is it provides us an opportunity for not only preventing overdose, whether it's from any kind of opioid or our more common thing right now is fentanyl that's around the entire state of Wisconsin. So this is an opportunity for us to have these available for people that might be in need of actually saving somebody's life. They are in our fire departments now. We actually have naloxone. We have naloxone in our buildings, in our emergency kits and our crisis response kits. This would actually provide it so they could take it outside of the buildings. This would be part of our emergency team response. This would be part of other people's able to help other people. So able to save lives other than just us. So the Narcan that we use is actually provided to us at no charge. This also would be something that's provided at no charge. And the nice part about this is we don't have any management of it. We don't have any financial connections to this. This whole process is budgeted for the next 25 years. So these will be refilled and restocked should they ever need any. And our hope is that it's never used and there's never a need for it, but we really want to be prepared should there ever be a need or someone can actually use it to save someone's life. And really what we want to do is kind of put them in the high school and see how it goes, make sure if there's any issues with it, we're managing and monitoring that aspect of it, and then really see how it goes and see if we want to expand that implementation in other schools. Our buildings are utilized not just by us all year round, it's utilized by the community. So when you start looking at the opportunity for something happening that's not on our watch when we have our crisis response teams there, this is a way to help prevent some of those things from taking place.
So talk to me a little bit like a scenario in which you would envision this being, you say it leaves the building. So first thing I think of is like sporting events, but I don't know if the proximity is close enough or if we have emergency vehicles that would have one as well. Obviously, there's no cost to us, but I wanna make sure that A, we're not inviting people in to get it from a secure standpoint, and B, that the timeliness of going and retrieving it from the high school with all, like, 4th of July parade and just all the activities that are happening in that general area is pretty populated, so efficiency-wise, how do you go get it and bring it out?
And we can have as many kits as we want. So
Okay.
one of the things we talked about is having one at the football stadium, having
Okay.
one in the building, but also having one outside of the building.
Okay.
So really, in my mind, I would probably have 3 for the entire campus.
Okay.
When you start talking about the ball fields towards Ben Franklin, it'd be ideal to have one out there as well.
And then when you said that it was budgeted through for 25 years, what budget is that?
Waukesha counties, I have no idea how their financing is tied to what they're doing.
Okay.
But when we had the actual presentation during our CPR-AED training, the rep from Waukesha County had come in and was laying out not only the specifics about this, but also about how much, they do. She's from here,
Okay.
and one of her kids actually goes to schools in Menominee Falls. So she said, you guys have it even better because if something does, if you need, you check it. And give me a call, I'll bring it home on the way home, so, but fill up whatever you need to do, which I thought was kinda nice too. Right now, the other schools in the area, when we're, cause my big thing was, what other schools have done this? If we're gonna pilot something like this, I really wanna know and have people that I can talk to about what it's like, what you guys have seen so far. And we're looking at all these local areas like Sussex, I'm trying to remember, Arrowhead, Pewaukee, even all the way out to Elkhorn, a friend of mine in Elkhorn's got this in his school. So there's a lot of the schools in the area that have an MPS has got them in multiple schools.
Do you
So
know, I'm sorry, to interrupt,
Yeah.
is this just at the high school in those districts, or do you know if it's?
Somewhere at the middle school too.
Somewhere at the middle school too,
Yeah.
okay.
I feel like that's the next spot where you have a lot of connectedness,
To the community.
correct?
Yeah,
Like
that
I
was-
instantly thought of high school / Ben Franklin, so just given again the proximity and the different hours, there's a lot of people that are in and out of using those gyms and using that resource a ton. Maybe the rec center seems like another spot and then the middle school, so.
And then when Sharon and I were kind of talking through like what would be the logical progression that we'd want to do. And the rec center was one that came up, and in the middle school too, just because of where it's at downtown. You know, something's going on at downtown, you got the big park and some of them, all of a sudden there's an issue. And there's gonna be emergency responders there probably.
Right,
What if there's somebody that's a kid that doesn't necessarily wanna draw that attention to a parent?
so what options do we actually have, cause if this can be used outside of the building, can we say, okay, to keep the building safe, you know, we might have one, you know, inside of the high school and then outside of the football field, for example.
Yeah.
Can we put it in like a vending machine type of an operation to help prevent people from coming into the buildings? Have you talked to the districts about that or what that looks like?
I haven't seen it in districts, but in Stevens Point, they do that at the university. So they actually have a Narcan vending machine outside there, and then they've got different supplies for it too. And that's a community-run vending machine.
Sure,
So I haven't talked to her about that, but we could. I mean,
okay.
that would be an easy conversation. I'm sure they could just say yes or no.
Right, I would just be curious, you know, cause my primary concern is, you know, people then entering the building. And obviously too, if it's an emergency, you're not gonna wanna be waiting for someone to let you in if there's a need
And
as
the building's
well.
closed.
Right, or
Yeah.
yeah, after hours or whatever, so
Yeah, for sure.
it might be a better application if that's an option.
Well, obviously, because they're free, it's a no-brainer to have them wherever. But we can have multiple ones, you know?
Correct.
And then I would probably put a specific point person in charge of the box in that school, whether it's a assistant principal or whoever's in that building every day.
Yeah.
You know,
Or a nurse assistant, like we have managed, they manage the AEDs.
Yeah.
So as they're going through and checking all the AEDs, making sure the batteries are up, they just do that as part of their rotation.
and then at some point, we're gonna have to let students know that this thing is here, this is what the signs you look for, if there's any doubt, grab it and.
Cause it's not addictive, it doesn't hurt you if you use it, it
Yeah.
helps you if you need it.
Right.
And, you know, if you wanna take rubber gloves, these guys are gonna get us new ones, so I mean,
Yeah.
you think about all the different contingencies that are tied to having this stuff around.
Mhm.
And whether it's a kid goofing around with rubber gloves or, you know, throwing gauze at each other, one way or the other, they're gonna be around, so.
I like the idea of the, if it's possible, I don't know the cost affiliated with operational, you prevent the mayhem in a middle school by having it potentially in more of a structured environment, like a vending machine.
Yeah.
I would feel like the high school would know what not to do, that a little bit better maturity wise.
Right.
Alright,
So we'll be keeping you posted on that as we go through the pilot and the process and make sure we keep you guys up to speed on what's going on and when we start talking about expansion, what we'll be looking at for that too.
Yeah, because I think another good point that Travis just brought up is educating the students. You know, I think on the, you know, on the last page here, looking at the community members' bullet points of just the signs and what to look for. And, you know, again, you know, how much do we want to promote this out in the community, like, hey, you know, this is here, and again, piloting at the high school to see what that's gonna cause, if there's a congregation wise, or, you know, again, I don't see that as an issue.
and I don't know that I
But-
love having a child be responsible for this. I think it's a matter of if you're aware, you're seeing these things, you're notifying an adult. So
Right.
that teacher, aide.
Or they're aware that
administrators
it's there, you know, if you, right, exactly, these are the things to look for and then call for help.
may- Correct, like
Um,
teachers.
So what are some of the thoughts on how much education you would like to see and how much of a promotion you'd like to have? Like I said,
It's a fine line, because I think part of it is similar to how we talked about vaping the last time we had it, is part of it is you don't wanna advertise, cause it sort of implies that you're giving permission to it. At the same time, there's recognition, and I guess the part of this that I like is it's not designed specifically for the schools. It's designed to be maintained in and around schools to support the community.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's played down a little bit more from a school standpoint, and maybe it's more community support and outreach to be able to say it's available if needed. And maybe we put it in any communication that's being prepared for families, for parents to just be aware that this stuff exists on site more than putting it in the hands of students. And maybe a different approach for the high school, just
Sure.
based on the age of those kids, but
Mhm.
I look at this as more of a, we're doing this to benefit community members more than students.
One of the reasons why, aside from the connection to the community that all schools and all districts have, is the reality that our kids are going through this with family members. And they, whether it's a parent, whether it's a brother or sibling, you know, something like that that's connected, they're going through it. And to make this available gives them an option to be prepared should it happen, and then not have to take that next step of dealing with another death in the family. So I think from the school aspect, it's a double benefit, you know, we help to serve the community that's gonna be coming and utilizing our buildings as a hub for the community. And at the same time, we're also servicing the families the kids that are having to deal with this every day. And the reality of having the stress of a parent that could possibly overdose is always a reality when you're in the houses with drugs that are present. But then having this gives you one less thing to worry about. So then they can focus more on the academics, they can focus more on what it's like to be a kid in the school instead of constantly worrying about is my dad or mom gonna die when I get home. So that is another aspect that's kind of it's a fine line. The optics of doing something like this when we know there's a problem, and there's such a severe issue that could happen to our kids in an instant. And I think the education piece of this is stressing the fact that you can be one and done with any of these drugs that you're experimenting with and playing games with. And that one and done is preventable, but at the same time, let's not do it in the first place, so that we're not having to do, Narcan dose in your friend's nose.
I'm not so worried about the thing getting stolen or vandalized or whatever. I mean, there's fire extinguishers in the school, there's,
Clocks.
ADDs, there's clocks,
Right.
it's the same thing.
Yep.
It's the
It's
same-
just one more way we can help.
Right.
Help out,
It's
prevent.
absolutely no different.
So those are coming. And what I'm gonna plan to do is get a hold of her one more time, I'll talk to her about the vending machine, and really just kind of work through that process of locations and see where everyone else is. I know in Elkhorn, they've got multiple sites, and they also have an alternative school there. And that alternative school has got more connections in the community for different reasons in Walworth County. But that's one of the things that when we start looking at our community and similar communities like ours, what do they do? Let's mimic it.
Right,
Because we don't have to create it from scratch if someone's doing it that's working.
right.
Perfect.
I agree,
If it's working.
yeah, absolutely, thank you.
Nice job.
Alright, next item on the agenda is power school attendance.
So this is quite a bit. So as we start looking at there's a couple good things, and this is the exciting thing for, I think, where we're going with us utilizing some of the tools that we've got in Power School. So at the middle school in North, we are going to be piloting a new plugin for Power School.
Did you say high school and middle school?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, the high school and middle school. So up till first semester, we're gonna utilize this new plugin through Power School that allows families to plug in excused absences for their kids. Super easy process. We just looked at the instructions today. We finalized the last part of the inputting process to it. So what'll happen is there's a one-page document that I'm gonna be sending out to all families this week that shows the instructions, and it doesn't work until school starts, but at the same time, people will be prepared for it. And really, it's 4 steps to the process. You log into your PowerSchool portal, you go down to the little button that says enter in attendance, you go over to the next step and it tells you what are you gonna enter for your attendance, and then it's yes or no, do you wanna excuse this time, and you put the time in. So the whole process simplifies having to call in, talk to somebody who then has to plug it in the computer, then verify their absence, so that's a lot of time that's involved in this, so this will increase the efficiency of it, and at the same time, there's checks and balances on the other end, where we can go through the reporting system and figure out, okay, is this legit? And as you're going through entering in the attendance anyways, it'll give you different signals and cues, hey, this is something you need to watch, this is something you need to watch.
Does it cover, I'm late, I'm leaving early, I'm leaving, I'm
Yes.
returning, I'm gone for the day, like there's a whole.
Hours by,
scenario.
it does like a time frame that you can
Okay.
plug in for it,
And
so.
then will somebody in the admin office then execute a like hall pass or a class pass in coordination?
So for the tardiness, actually, there's a generator you can actually print through, so we didn't buy that plug-in yet. But that
Okay.
was one of the things we had talked about doing, cause there's a lot of vendors that try to sell you stuff, and I'm sure you guys at school board meetings have seen these at WASBO conferences where Plasco Track and some of the, even Raptor, I think, offers one where you can have a late pass that you'll print out. And then the kids can be issued a detention time to do too. There's something similar to PowerSchool offers, that we do it at the exact same time. So
I just-
we're new to this whole thing because it's a fairly new plugin, so it'll be interesting to see how it works, but that would be the kind of the progression that we were looking at when we were doing it.
I just know that I spent a fair amount of time in the high school office and the middle school office with picking children up for orthodontist appointments and PT and just a bunch of things, and so they're in and out back and forth. Part of the issue is sometimes when you have human intervention, wrong date, wrong time, kids are late, they didn't get a pass, somebody didn't get an email, husband forgot to send it, wife forgot to send it, just a whole variety of things can go wrong, so I like the idea of an app because we're being driven that way from a technology standpoint to kind of have it.
Mhm.
I think, to your point, be mindful that families will have multiple children, so with the PowerSchool, you'll be able to remember to say like, hey, step on which tab for which child, go down to the
Right.
menu and do that. Some may take that for granted and forget, but yeah, I like the idea of an app because then it's a tracker and you know, hey, did so-and-so mark out someone, or do I still have to do it? If it's not in there, then.
And if we get enough,
Yep.
then we can trigger it again and say, hey, by the way, you got 10, you got 15.
Right.
So, and
Then it
then,
gives you better data too.
so there was part of our data tracking that we're looking for behavior there.
And this only works on the parents' login. Like, my daughter can't go in there and log into her
Oh,
PowerSchool.
No, not
Maybe
hers,
they can-
no, 18 plus, if they do waive their,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
part, but no, unless they stick your password,
Yeah.
this is just your,
Okay,
yeah, for your
For
portal.
your portal.
It really, and then you can manage it and see it too. So
Okay.
you'll be able to see, you know, holy cow, we've got a lot of times I've been calling in.
Mhm.
And then you'll be able to visually see what those things are too, so.
Okay.
It's a really good plugin, I was pretty impressed with it.
How are you gonna gather feedback?
We'll know from the admin assistants at every building.
Do you wanna pick do you have a way of knowing which people download the app and use it to be able to hit up a small sampling of parents to see what their thoughts
We
are?
should be able to.
I would recommend doing that and just reaching out either a targeted email or some amount of survey just to be able to say, hey, how's your experience going? You know, is it, if you're putting in the portal, can you see it, can you track it, is it helpful? Is the office doing what you expect, or is it creating more
More hassle.
so,
Yeah.
meaning, hey, you try to buy the one add-in, but it doesn't flow so smoothly through the system, do we have to invest in order to achieve the
Yep.
throughput?
To get what we want.
Correct.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So that's the first big attendance update. The second one is the messenger, and having the messenger go out now for, just like at the middle school and the high school, we're gonna be doing it at the elementary school too.
Okay.
So the amount of hours that's put in by the admin assistants calling and following up with some of these, you know, lates, tardies, unexcused, all those different things, this is gonna be inputted at the elementary school too. So now all of our buildings will be utilizing that messenger service.
Okay.
The biggest thing that we worked on was this procedure 431. So I don't remember if, when we were going through this, I did share some of the documentation that we started with the original document that's currently the procedure 431. And this is based off of board policy 431 for attendance. And then Sarah had shared out a board policy, I think it was from PRG, the board policy 431.
Mm-hmm.
So what you see here, and this is a draft, So if there's typos and grammar errors, it's still to be fixed before I get it to the actual attendance staff committee. But as you look at it, this is a meshing of all the things that we really needed to be caught up to the state statute 11815, and then all of the stuff that's coming from that board policy. So there's a lot of things that we pulled out of our current policy, a couple of things that are not our board policy, but our board procedure,
Right.
including a couple things that were not valid by the law, to change it, so now that we are current with the accepted board policies throughout the state, which again, the benefit of utilizing a board policy for a procedure is you've got all the legal research and background information you need that's already done. So taking that, combining with what we currently had to this new version is what we'll be moving forward with our procedure for board policy 431.
Okay, so just so I can follow.
Mhm.
Policy 431 is staying as is. It's the procedure that's being updated around the execution of the policy. So we're not changing policy,
Exactly.
we're just updating the procedures. Perfect.
Yep, we used to call these administrative actions, so it was the ADs.
We, with the Ps, I just wanna be, it's
Yep.
it's the end of a long work day with a lot of reading every day, I wanna make sure I understood, so,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yes, and this did come from WASB.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So one of the biggest things that we needed to add on here was the ability of our attendance officers to have some leeway and freedom on what it is we utilize to get kids to school. Because really, the point and purpose behind what we do from a attendance standpoint is we really want our students in the building so we can teach them what they need to know. And unless they're in the building, there's not much we can do. So really, we wanna give some leeway to the attendance officers to help make determinations, to give leeways to say, all right, if you do this, we're gonna be able to do this. And really having that statute is gonna allow us to work a little bit more with not only the truancy process, but also with some of the ramifications and consequences on the other end in some of this truth. So it was just a lot of little things and little tweaks that we added to it that is it's gonna make the procedure a lot better.
Anecdotally, I received some feedback when a lot of attendance push was coming in spring, as people were gearing up at both the high school and the middle schools, it was a major focus. Just based on feedback, something to consider, and I don't know the criteria, clearly we're not sitting in any of the conversations, but some students that have very high marks were missing out on some of the rewards based on fractional, and I happen to know that one of the students happened to be at the middle school, went back to visit family in India and exceeded their thing, but still maintained a 4.0. And so just, you may wanna, I understand, hey, we're putting a procedure, I love that you just said, hey, we're gonna look at a way to be able to have some flexibility. That will be a big win with a lot of families that recognize the importance of education, but also are like, hey, we have unique situations, we're not gonna go back to India and unfortunately we're gonna miss the 10 days. But if a student is still performing and they stay current and they catch up, I don't know that I wanna feel good about punishing, I'm punishing them, I wanna make sure I'm holding high standards for those students that maybe need the TLC or need the attentional detail. And I know all students come in different shapes and sizes and different backgrounds and abilities, and so I leave it in the hands of local folks to figure out how to do that, but to the extent that we can make it not feel like a punishment, I think it's important.
So if you look at this big item on section. Section 3, excuse the absence, which is a lot, there's a ton in there.
Mhm.
But if you go way down to 13, the very last one on there. That's exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
So we run into this a lot of times with club athletics, and students will have
Right.
opportunities to go other parts of the country, and they'll be able to do their schooling, and they're still, like you say, maintaining a 4.0.
Yep.
So within a reason, you know, if you're out for a semester, we kinda gotta weigh that out of whether we should still call you a student or not. But at the same time, think about foreign exchange opportunities for kids. You know, Rotary offers a foreign exchange student that's not even a semester long, how do we say no?
Right.
Because you excuse 10, and again, these are the things that we need to have abilities to do as an attendance officer, so. That really gives us the freedom to help, the students that need the help, we're gonna be able to give them help. The
Right.
students that have it covered, we'll be able to say you got it covered. So that's the nice part about this procedure being modified like this too.
Are there already designated school attendance officers in every school?
Yep, every building, so either the AP or even at the middle school, it's the AP and the dean of students can do that too. So the attendance officer technically for every building is a building principal, but then it turns into their designee. So then it really boils down to, and one of the pieces of this was actually the superintendent too. And it's towards the end of the actual document. And then his designee would be the principal that he determined to be the attendance officer for. District administrator or their designee, along with the building principal, shall establish necessary procedures and encourage regular student attendance, so.
And then I would expect that based on all of the stuff that you're collecting here from a procedure standpoint, you're gonna have data.
Yep.
And then we'll be able to establish a baseline and then figure out, how many instances we are bringing to, escalation with parents and administration, et cetera. To be able to keep a pulse on it, or if we're able to close that gap and get closer to the 90%.
And when you start looking at, and this is one of the biggest things, statewide, when you look at the attendance on our school report cards, and everybody took a beating on attendance. I mean, after COVID, everything just went, and now we're slowly starting to get traction again. But as you look at the data that's in the school report card for this year, it was from 21-22. So then everyone's like, holy cow, the attendance is terrible, we gotta work on this and fix it. Yeah, well, we're kind of looking at an autopsy report from 2 years ago, not necessarily what we're currently doing.
Right.
So I think as we start looking at it, but again, it's a focus area, we need to fix it, even if it's 2 years ago. We better manage that and keep an eye on it, otherwise it will be the accurate attendance rate. So I think we're doing the right stuff, it's just, we've gotta make sure we're keeping track of it, and that's where that data management comes in.
And will this procedure apply to all 6 schools?
Yes, all,
Okay.
yep. That was one of the whole parts about getting this systematically in place.
Yes, and having all of the, again, when you're looking at the assistant principals or whoever's the attendance officer, it's that consistency for building to building and expectation that way too.
And they're having, at the elementary level, they're having a lot of meetings and conversations regarding the time frame of what becomes tardy, what becomes truant, what becomes excused, what becomes unexcused. And that is still going, so I started that conversation and they're doing a great job hashing out like what's a good way to do it, so.
Consistency gives you better data,
Yeah.
and that's the facts,
And
yeah.
ultimately, and again, that goal, better attendance, so with more kids in front of us every day, all day, then everything else is gonna go up too, because if they're in front of us, we can teach them, we can't teach them anything else.
Will your data reflect who's out for illness versus school suspension
Yep.
or, so it will break it down into
Everything
like
will be broken
categories, so
down,
we kinda know what we can fix and influence versus.
We clean that up too. So
Okay.
one of the first things that we did is we went through the attendance codes, so everybody's gonna have uniform codes from all the buildings. Because they had some stuff in there that, I mean, it was part of the process, right? It was an older process that had worked for years and we
Sure.
just updated it.
Awesome.
And some of that was just codes that worked better for certain people in certain buildings, so. Let's see. Yeah, right now, I wanna get someone with 2 good eyes to look at the actual final grammatical error on there, so we're gonna have, that'll be finalized, and then it'll go before the staff committee. And really, it's everything that we had talked through so far in our 2
Sure.
committee meetings. It's gonna be systematic, I like it, the process of the district.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you. One quick question to go back to that Power School plugin.
Yep.
When did we wanna do a sample of the parents? How much time do you think we should kind of wait and see, is this working or not? Do we continue?
I would think before Thanksgiving, because usually right around Thanksgiving time, attendance gets kind of wonky, actually around deer hunting is when it really starts getting wonky.
Sure,
So that second week of November,
yeah,
it starts going all over the place, so my hope would be, and we'd really like to get this operational in December so we can roll it out at the elementary schools for that semester in January.
okay,
So I'm thinking if we look at somewhere around that Halloween-ish area,
Yeah.
it would be a pretty good thing.
okay. I like that too, thank you.
That was another, we had very interesting data gathered during a school year when you look at attendance rates. And the calendar, not many people realize, but the calendar that we build and we get approved by the board has a very dramatic impact on attendance rates. And when you start talking about those first days before Thanksgiving, you talk about deer hunting, and you can watch an entire year's worth of attendance that's been going, we were at like a 95 or 96% attendance rate, and then deer hunting hit, it went like this. And then those Monday and Tuesdays when we were at school for Thanksgiving, it went shoo. And then we started back up again, and then it was right around Christmas, it went back down again, and it's just, you can monitor this stuff, and one of the other things that Power School offers is a dashboard. So we'll be able to watch this stuff live as it's calling in, so within 2 or 3 days, we can start seeing patterns.
Sure.
Not that we can really change a lot of that, but it just gives us an ability to watch
Awareness.
it, awareness of what we gotta do the next years.
Well, we just need to make deer hunting a national holiday.
Then we'd be set.
Federal.
It's federal.
The other thing that makes it a little unique on our calendar, as you'll see, is we don't have as many school days or education hours because of our Wednesday early release. And so there's been a lot of chatter around that particularly. Elementary schools see a huge lift to it, and middle school and high school sort of mixed reviews. And so I think that's on some folks' radar, if they wanna work with Leah on any feedback she's received as she socializes the calendar. The problem is we either have to go all in as a district to maintain and leverage it,
Yep.
because otherwise it has big impacts on our busing, and a lot of our, right now, the schools handle it well with the study hall if there's after-school activities, but that would give us more time back, flexibility to have maybe less attendance impact, but I will leave you all to like circle all of the content
That
and
is,
the
that
feedback
is a
and
real
then.
conversation.
It is,
Yeah,
for
it's-
sure, especially when you start talking about not ending in that far in June.
Right.
You have to get those minutes and hours back somewhere, and it's either you make the day longer or you make the day full.
Right.
Those are.
And we've had early release Wednesdays for 10, 12 years now, it's been a long time. We started asking questions when we first got into these roles around what is the ROI on it, and ultimately it came down to if the teachers are using it to really align on student data and take a look at how do we need to shift, and heavens knows we've spent a lot of time on ELA and other things. I want them to have that opportunity to align and use it, so if it's being used, I'm all for it, but if it's not being used and they have other sections and periods for how that work gets executed, then I think it's probably worthwhile the conversation.
And that's that academic return on investment, the ROI, and what are we getting for what we're putting into it? And overall, is there a different alternative we could explore that might work better?
Mhm.
Dan Gebauer and I had talked about this too, because we had a resource process, it was a ELT or extended learning time that was built into the day, and it was 29 minutes long. And for block scheduling, which is what I'm a very, very big advocate for, block scheduling, you are able to build those time into the day so that you can actually have that loss that you have during the Wednesday, and you can build that in through those enrichment periods throughout the week. And we had a 90-minute block plus 47 minutes of enrichment period. So as you start looking at the impact of that during the week, we would get rid of it. That was that one day. Now you just got 47 minutes back on Wednesday. So then they're like, where can I get another 2 or 3 minutes period?
Mhm.
So then you go to 87 minutes. It's a lot of haggling on
very
those
science.
master schedules,
Mhm.
just to get to those minimum minutes that the state requires. And then everybody's favorite gets thrown in there, snow day.
Right, right.
Well, and we've talked a lot, I think there's like a one gimme on the schedule from a snow day perspective, but then I think right now high school got pushed to do a remote day where they had to do some remote education last year, but it didn't carry through to middle or elementary. And I would argue we all have Chromebooks now, so where's the possibility to be able to do some remote learning? Not that everybody needs to fire up and be live on, but you can hand out some studies and activities, so.
For sure. Some
Especially
sort
in
of-
winter.
Yeah. We had
Super.
nine days. You weren't through.
That's
Really?
incredible.
We had a lot of snow.
That's incredible.
And cold days and freezing
Well,
rain days. And
Here, you're a little
Late
bit
night.
more, are we gonna get hit, are we not gonna get hit? And so we have a couple, have called it, and then nothing has happened. And then there's days where, should we send the kids home, which is an awful experience to be in, because you don't know who's at home to catch the kids.
Right.
And then people are like frustrated that buses are trying to navigate streets at the end of the day with snow, so.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it is a lose-lose situation, other than if you can be as transparent about the proactive nature and what you've done, maybe wins people over, but.
With the ultimate goal of keeping the kids safe,
Right.
number one.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to transportation and bad
Right.
weather.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
Right.
No, you
Yeah,
don't.
you gotta take a chance and
That's-
call it a day,
Mhm.
because, you know, our weather is unpredictable as deer hunting, so.
We had 12 inches in April, right after 360-degree days, and I got a picture of my wife measuring it, because the dogs had to go outside, and it was taller than they were, and
Yeah.
All the
There's a lot of
inches,
snow.
that is a mental challenge right there.
Yeah. Mhm.
Alright, well, good work on the attendance.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, next item on the agenda is safety.
So this is just a really small sample of what you're gonna see floating around the district. So every single one of our exit doors, you can actually have one here in our district office, our exit door is going to have this on it.
So
And
anything that takes like a keypad to move around the building, we have one of these.
Yeah. so really what it comes down to is our goal, when you look at how much money is spent on safety and security, it all goes away if we got a prop door.
Correct.
As soon as that outside door is open, everything's out, you just wasted everything and did everything for nothing. So it's critical for people to realize that this is the most important aspect of security in anywhere. Safety and security boils down to not propping the door open.
It's too bad you couldn't put smile, you're on camera underneath
Yeah.
to really enforce.
Some of them do.
Can I see it one more time?
So-
Just wanna take a picture.
Oh, yeah.
This sticker right here is got a twofold purpose. One, sarcastically, it will make people talk.
Right.
Okay, and once people start making fun of, this is not going to make kids not prop doors open. Well, you just exactly proved my point, because now we're talking about safety and security, now you open the door for other conversations. So, and I shared this story before, when I was at one of my school districts prior to this one, I've done this at almost every school district I've been in. And a person was at a meeting and was brand new and I'd already done this in their building, I had them all around the building. This person started talking and was making fun of the stickers, and I just chuckled, because this isn't the first time it had happened. And it was, who's the moron that put the stickers on the doors at the high school? Like, that's really gonna keep a bunch of high school kids from propping the door open, they're gonna prop the door open, they're gonna leave class and everything else. So then we're going around the room introducing each other, who's this? I'm the moron that came up with the sticker idea, but I wanna, instantly, she turned bright red, and I'm like, but you proved my point. Because part of this isn't necessarily to get you to stop propping the door, it's about having conversations about safety and security and importance of why that door needs to be
It
shut.
got her attention. She
Right.
saw the sticker.
Mhm.
And Isabella added some nice touches, I thought, with the little falls on the side too,
Yeah.
compared to my old ones. And we had these printed by Meyer Trophy or awards that we've got in town here, which did a really nice job on them. It's supposed to be done next week, he got them done last week.
Okay.
So those are in the principal's hands and they'll be going around the district, so when you go in the buildings, you'll see that on the doors.
All right.
And that's one of many security enhancements we're gonna be putting in place. Most of them where you don't wanna discuss in open forum because it is safety and security related, include maps and updates to maps. We generally wanna keep that kind of information under our hat until we need it.
Yep.
But there's other things that we're gonna be putting in place from a classroom standpoint for safety and security and trainings and updates that's gonna be going.
What would be nice is if there's a way to quantify the changes that you're implementing, whether it's in dollars, whether it is in events or doors touched or whatever. I think that would be nice to be able to show, hey, without giving details in terms of what our plan is and exposed risk, but to actually somehow articulate the power of being able to do it, I think would be phenomenal if we could come up with a.
There'll be some other samples that we can talk through.
Okay.
That we can bring up at other meetings as well, and one of them's at the printer right now. So I have the draft copy of it on my desk, but I wanna make sure I can show you the final copy because the printer in town is doing an awesome job on it too. The other part that we really do wanna spotlight is we went local with this stuff. And because we went local, we saved a lot of money.
Oh, good.
And again, through Myers, PRG, our printers that are doing this flip chart that you guys will see, which actually our village is utilizing a similar process that I came up with in 2012, which I thought was pretty cool. But those are gonna be the things that we'll be able to show. And some of the other things, again, it's systematic enhancements to what we do. It's not, we didn't have anything necessarily bad that we were doing before. We used a standard response protocol that was from I Love You Guys. And it was from a few years back. It's changed, it's updated, just like everything. This
Right.
right here is one of the things that will be consistent. It's not gonna change, but our flip chart will change. And our maps will change because we'll do them and we're like, I don't think this is a good place to go for a tornado. Maybe we got a
Sure.
different evacuation route for a fire. Just some of those
Or
things
the
that we're doing.
feedback from, hey, we've had tornado
Right,
and people get crowded in wherever they go, and then
Mhm.
it either works or doesn't work, or size of classes or enrollment makes it challenging, so.
so that's one of the
But
nice,
that's the plan, is
That's
it's
it.
alive and breathing, you learn.
You got it, right, on the money, cause it's constantly evolving into what we want it to be best for kids' safety, it's great, like you said, Trent. And this is safety,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a priority with everything we're doing.
What I would strongly recommend is that having one of the SROs go to each individual class or just as a big assembly, be like, doors need to be closed, do not prop open, you'll see the sticker, just educate the kids on basic security and measures. When there's an active I mean, we maybe not wanna bring that up or whatever to the little kids, but to the high school kids, it's a real
Like to
threat.
talk about just the drills in general. I mean,
Right,
I
yeah,
love-
I mean, in the elementary, but in the high school, I mean, kids know, they watch the news, they know what happens. You need to stay in your classroom, the door needs to be locked, you know, yeah.
When we switch over from what we're doing right now, which again is a standard-based protocol, we're gonna be switching over to what's called option-based training, and that's don't hide fight.
Yep.
So you might have heard of Alice before, I know David, way back in the day when Dave and I first started doing this, we were Alice schools and Alice trainers. And David was one of the Alice trainers for the state of Wisconsin. When you start looking at this options-based training, which run hide fight, is much more simple, and it's actually designed specifically by the Secret Service and the FBI for active threats. And when you start talking about high schoolers and even middle schoolers, you're gonna need everybody you can to help defend should there need a rise. So that's gonna be a part of our training, we're gonna be doing building by building.
Although run, hide, and fight doesn't necessarily have to go in order.
Nope.
You hide first,
You got it?
you know, in a
Or-
locked classroom door.
Even if it's right in front of you,
Yeah.
you might have to fight, and that's part of our, another implementation that we're putting in place, and we won't get too much detail, but there's things that are gonna be in every classroom that are gonna help that process along too. So when you look at the amount of money that we were doing and what we're anticipating this actual cost, and we're looking at about $15,000 for what we're anticipating all these upgrades and stuff are gonna cost. I think when Isabel and I did totaled up for just over $4,000 right
Oh my goodness, alright.
So when you look
Small
at the
price.
bang for the buck on that,
Yeah,
these things here were less than, I think it was $1.15 or $1.30, something like that. And when you look at just that conversation, the education piece coming out of it,
Yep.
we're less than $500 for our entire district being set. And that's the key, you really
Well,
wanna
and
see it.
this supports the investment in the cameras, the investment in the security, the investment in the improvement in all the lobbies in the schools, et cetera. It's not standalone, it's now bringing it all together, so.
right, absolutely,
We're going in a very good direction.
Good. Ramp it up.
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
My one
First
speed.
get them to school, then keep them safe.
Yeah. Let's see.
Alright, we
Expect that's it.
have future agenda items.
I do have one that I wanted to bring up, and it's been brought up before, and I believe it's in front of the finance committee right now, but the cost per student per sport for our athletics is considerably higher than our neighboring districts. So if we could dig into why that is, how we can lower those prices for these families, and you know, how low we can get. Obviously, we can't do it for free, but I'm looking at the website right now for high school, $165 per student per sport. When and you max out at 4, and the middle school is at $130 per student per sport, and again, you max out in 4, but they can be combined middle school and high school, so.
Do we know what our neighboring districts are?
There is a
remember seeing some
chart,
analysis of
yeah, there is a chart, I was looking at one earlier today, but it is antiquated because it's a little bit older, I think it's 2 years old.
Probably makes sense.
Right, yeah, so if we could revisit that, and maybe we need to coordinate with the finance committee or the finance department, and just look at why are we that high? Are we offsetting it with something else or whatever, so I just wanted to bring that up
Do
as,
you know that I'm on finance committee?
well,
I could be your clue.
you could be,
So if you wanna talk to Caitlin, you can,
Yeah.
and then we don't really ask for additional topics in finance, but I can always bring it up at our next meeting and
Sure.
just make sure, hey, what do you need and how do you,
Background data on it,
correct,
Yeah.
and
yeah,
why are we doing what we're doing?
well, we just
and how
reviewed
can we
fees as
improve it?
well,
yep.
so I don't know any work we would do.
And I'm
without
looking at
being
the activity club fees, and they're at $20, which is, I'm assuming reasonable, but, you know, the sports, You know, especially when you're a three-sport athlete or four-sport athlete, you're getting up
Multiple
there.
kiddos. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
You're
absolutely.
getting up there, so,
For sure.
that'd be great if we could put it
Yep,
on
we can
the
take it.
future agenda. I don't have anything else.
So, I have a topic that is very unpopular, but I've been seeing a lot of this chatter since the, back to school fair, is like dress code, student dress code. So, I feel like that is on the agenda somewhere, and we
It is.
talked about this.
It came up at our last committee for finance, cause it's finance and personnel are merged together, and so the policy
Okay.
handbook that Leah brought was tied to dress code. She made
Okay.
a change and called it out, for staff, and will be reviewing the return to kick off the new school year
Sure.
at that point. Are you talking student or are you talking employee? That was the employee one.
Yeah, student,
Student is typically at a building level,
right.
because it's different for elementary versus middle school versus high school, so.
Right, do we wanna have that conversation of, you know, how is it consistently enforced? What are the dress codes? I feel like this was maybe even on the 5-year strategic plan to look into this. As part of the code of conduct, because we had talked about kind of streamlining things as far as that goes too. I guess I would like to learn more about what the dress codes are at each level, and then how they are enforced, and how, you know, does staff feel like there's not an issue there, or does staff also see an issue?
So if you go out to the parent handbook or the student handbook for each school, the dress code should be covered. So it should be covered in there. I don't know how many of them have been updated recently. I think with each new,
Revised,
Principal.
revised July 26, 2021. It's
that's the policy.
3 paragraphs long,
The dress code.
barely.
Is that for staff or students?
This is for students.
Okay,
The main points, if you would allow me, restrictions concerning dress, hairstyle, cleanliness will be confined to those situations which cause interference with schoolwork, create classroom or school disorder, or interfere with the health and safety of students. The health and safety of students includes restrictions to apparel which promotes products or activities that are illegal.
What's the policy number?
I'm reading from policy 443.2. And also it says principals shall maintain written rules of student dress code and shall determine discipline when the dress code is violated in accordance with the student code of conduct.
okay,
Again, revised last July 26, 2021, so 3 years.
And that'll fall under those student handbooks that you guys, you're gonna approve in January or February as a board.
Mhm.
So that'll be part of that, each principal will need to do the in writing what the actual expectations are. I would recommend that we keep that whole group of different rules and expectations as part of what we wanted to do as part of the strategic plan, cause I do know that was one of the things we talked about in July and
okay,
June too.
that's why it sounded so familiar to me.
And we have had that conversation already at the building level with the admin. Typically, when you look at dress code is enforced or is brought up by staff in the classroom and then is enforced by the APs.
Mhm.
So those would be people that I would put together as part of that whole code of conduct thing anyways.
Mhm.
And then that would be one of the components we want to look at too.
Alright,
And that would
I like
be,
that approach.
if it needs to be revised from the handbook, then that's what we do, but if it's something that's not being enforced, when you're at a back to school fair, you're gonna see it because
Oh,
it's hard to say,
absolutely.
we're not gonna,
It started the conversation and brought it to my
It's
attention,
awesome.
so,
for sure.
yeah. Alright, so, we do need to set the next meeting date.
Do you want to adjourn before we hop on to cancel an online meeting?
Yes, we can, I like that idea.
Alright.
Alright, I need a motion to adjourn the Student Services Committee meeting.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is passed and we are adjourned at 6:49 PM. And we can look at